Well, hello and welcome. This is program number 5 in the current series of From Sabre to Barbados, the maritime legacy of Captain Eric Hassell. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. As always, thanks for your time. In last week's program, we discussed the events surrounding the sinking of the Zipper and the early stages of the business's development. Now, entrepreneurship has always been recognized as a means of empowering our people and boosting economic growth. What you are about to see and hear are the fine examples of an individual who recognized the growing need of a people and simply put things in place to meet those needs and satisfy the customers. Granddaughters Erica Luke and Tessa Chatterton Shaw recalls memories of his work ethics.
Eric Hassell's leadership at the helm of the company was characterized by a very strong work ethic. He started his days at 5 o'clock in the morning. He felt he needed to be here early, just in the event that a vessel arrived ahead of time.
I remember walking across the bridge, what would now be the Independence Bridge, because he would park on Cavens Lane. Of course, the landscape was very different then, but he always had a very brisk walk. And there are certain indigent people whom he would very discreetly give money to as he walked by. He always carried cash and he never wanted any recognition. He was never a man who wanted, he would be rolling in his grave now if he knew that we were actually honoring him in this way. Because he was never anyone who sought public attention or publicity. Whatever he did was very discreetly and quietly done.
A picture of humanity. I'm sure that quite a lot could be gleaned from what he did, always giving, always sharing, and always looking out for the interests of others. All those who came into contact with him perhaps would never forget his signature greeting, peace. Why did he use that greeting term, peace, Jeffrey?
You know, he said it covers a multitude of sins. Now, you would come in here and you would come through the door. Daddy sitting down there. You say, Captain Hassell? He said, peace. Me going to sleep at night. Mom, I going in. Peace. I going in the morning, right? I said, peace. He always said it covered a multitude of sins. It means good morning. It means good evening. It means how are you. It means I'm in a bad mood. So he said peace covered everything.
I never asked him because it seemed to have followed from his manner. He always, when he called me, for example, he would always call very early in the morning, just about 6 o'clock. He would be, along with Leo Leacock, who was another of the few black businessmen in town. So he would call me most mornings when he called at 6 o'clock. He would already be in town. Sometimes he would mention that he's already spoken to his friend Leo, and he would call me about a matter, and the conversation scarcely ever went beyond two or 3 minutes. And he would begin, when the phone ring and I answer, Johnny Shelton here, good morning, peace. That is how he announced that he's on the other end, peace. Want to see you. 11 o'clock would do that, be there, peace. That is how he expressed himself, with great brevity.
Well, Mr. Hassell was not a man who walked around with all the words in the world. He was, in my view, a person of few words. Not because he didn't have words, but because I did not find him to be a loquacious, cantankerous, obstreperous. None of those words I would associate in that family or with Eric Hassell.
If you ask him about something that was not on the agenda, he would tell you, but he was never a man to be into a long discussion on any matter, man of few words.
You reasoned with him, you showed him where you were, he put his position. If we didn't reach agreement, then we looked for second positions, alternative positions. And I remember more than ever that was the nature that came through at meetings where he was involved. And it is still one that I think those of the older school of dock workers who will remember him, those are what they would remember of Eric Hassell.
The sort of memory you would have of him is having the shortwave radio in the office and hear him talking to the captains. So I might go in there early one morning and he'd be there talking with them, and I can still, see him doing that.
In the face of perceived difficulties or facing difficulties, peace was always unflappable. He was always quietly optimistic that we would have a successful outcome, but he was never flustered. We never saw any sign of emotion. Fella is angry or he's flustered. Nothing so. He was always quiet and unflappable. And that remained the position to the end. His passions really were the family. He was a man deeply devoted to his wife and to his children. The family obviously came first, the business. He was committed to his church, the Cathedral Church of St. Michael and All Angels, the lodge.
Good ethics make good business sense, and a business stands to profit from a reputation for acting with honesty and integrity. Captain Peace was well known for the values which he insisted on at all times.
So he insisted on safety and productivity from his staff and family members. His zero tolerance for slackness, even among family, set a good example for the rest of the employees.
He's a very shrewd businessman, although he had no business training. And when he actually got into a full office, I actually worked with him for about a year. He was very, very shrewd. You see those bits of paper I have there? I used to enter the ledger, and when I got to work on mornings, he will say, I have lots of little love notes for you there. Each one, you decide what you did wrong. And I would have to sit there. He would never tell me, well, this is what is wrong or what. I have to correct it all.
When you come to work for him, you come to work. And if you do a good job, you are going to be more than well rewarded. I remember, that's a little aside, just to give you an idea. The first 2 or 3 months when I was working with him, one night I went out. I got me about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I called him, Mum, I'm really under the weather and whatnot. Should I go to work? Mom said, come and lie down, come and lie down. I would phone Dad. I said, no, I'm gonna go. So, which I did. Around 1 or 2 o'clock, the sun started beating down in the office. So he would send me letters say, go to F.W. Woolworth and ask Mr. Brown, and he will give you a check. Well, I would go to F.W. Woolworth, but when I got there, because of the lack of sleep and other things, I didn't know what to do. So I would phone him. I said, what would you want me to do? So he would tell me. So it happened twice. When I got back in the evening, he says, come here. I want to tell you something. if you intend to come to work again like that, don't worry to come back. Straight so. No other words, nothing. I said from then, this guy, he isn't cooling out. It is, you gotta, when you go to them, and don't worry about them because you with them, you want to travel allowance and in the car. No. Just do the work and everything will fall into place. I mean, him never had anything.
Well, he was straightforward, He thought with peace, you could do this here for me? Yeah. Okay. How much? Okay. Okay, good. You start. And that was it. So he's a very straightforward man. Okay, that's what I really liked about him. You knew where he stood with him. If he liked something you did, you would tell him. If he didn't like it, you would hear. You get an earful at 7 o'clock in the morning. Because many times I would come in my office and he would be calling me after being in his office for about 2 hours or more. You remember to do that thing for me? Yeah, peace. Yeah. And now I have to hustle. Because I said, he's a very straightforward man. You do your work, he's happy. If you don't do your work, he's very unhappy.
I worked at Eric Hassell and Son as a young girl during the summer vacations, and he gave no quarter to family members. If I had to be at work for 8:30, that applied to me as well. Whatever staff, whatever rules and regulations pertain to staff also pertain to family members. No special favors are granted. If it was 1 hour for lunch, that was it for me as well.
Another characteristic of his leadership was his aversion to debt. He made every effort to shun credit from commercial entities.
And he always said he never owed anybody. He paid his bills promptly. That was one thing with him, yeah.
He had this virtual hatred of owing people money. He did not like to owe. If you sent him a bill, Pete had no accounts payable. He owed nobody any money. Once he got the bill and he was satisfied with the job, he paid, which is good. Now, I have followed on with that one in that respect, notwithstanding the fact that accounts payable can be used as a form of financing. But I learned from him that it's better to set yourself a time where you're going to pay your debt, pay, so that you don't have any worries about people calling you. Because one thing like him, I don't like anybody calling me and ask me to owe him. I owe them money. Okay? So that's what I learned from him.
As he felt that this would reduce their power over his enterprise. Moreover, it was his philosophy that bills were paid as soon as they were received. And this model continues to form a blueprint for the company today.
Taking the business to another level, because the maritime industry was also changing with containerized cargo. Of course, the schooner business would have shifted as the Bridgetown port was developed and became more mechanized with larger ships. So he, as I reflect on the growth and evolution of the business, he tried to stay ahead of that, of those changes, bringing in, as I said, Jeffrey and Frank. Now Erica is the managing director of a very modern era. And so he was constantly preparing. He was constantly preparing, constantly grooming. Of course, during that time, I would say, well, he died in 1994.
In fact, he died at a meeting at the lodge. He disturbed the quiet of the meeting when they heard boosh. His head fell on the table, and he was no more. So he died at a lodge meeting. And an interesting thing is that when they obviously had to remove his tie and so on. At first, when he collapsed, they thought that they would try to make him as comfortable as possible, they were fanning him and so on, as I was explained to me. But he was, in short order, he died.
But yeah, I was very close to him, and I grieved for him for two years after he died. I got sick. I had an attachment. I would call him every day. Every evening I would call him. And I miss that. I mean, every evening I called him when he was getting older. So.
The affection of a daughter for her father, strong family ties. Now, speaking about family ties, it was as if he knew exactly what was about to happen.
I also want to add that by inviting his son Jeffrey to manage the business alongside him, he had prepared the company for the future, for a sustainable family business model.
It had to continue. I was there for 23 or 24, how many years, but I am married to a Canadian, right? And we were living here we got married in Canada, but 17 years, and I knew at some time my wife would want me to go to Canada. I knew that on my mind, And when Daddy died, I said, this is the time I should try it, knowing in the back of my mind that somebody will have to step up to the plate to run the business, right? So I had a little talk with my brother Frank then, right? Frank was working at Bear. So I says, Frank, I have to go to Canada. If I do not go now, I know, and I get really back into Eric Hassell and Son, I will not be able to leave. So Frank came and was running the business. Frank retired, and one of my nieces now, Erica, she is running the business. And she worked with us previously as well. When we made the change from the Corrinas to the Deepwater Harbour, we had her working as a sales representative in the country then, and she did quite a lot for us. So Erica now, she had been running the business. Frank retired when he was 60, I am 65 or whatever it is. And Erica has been running the business for the last 22, 23, 24, 25 years. And the business has grown. And one of my nephews is there as well, Mark Hassell. Mark is her assistant. Right, so there is, it got to continue.
His leadership and his work ethic, his generosity, ensured that he left an indelible mark on his family, his company, and the shipping community. Today, we apply those core values, which include honesty, integrity, teamwork, mutual respect, among others. These are the hallmarks of the service excellence of the company. I also want to add that our family spirit among the team, I believe, is a key to our success. Our staff really give their heart and souls to the business every day. And it is this spirit and this approach that helps to move the company ahead as we grow together.
Being true to yourself takes courage. It requires you to be introspective, sincere, open-minded, and fair. It means that you will not let others define you or make decisions for you that you should ordinarily make for yourself.
Walking in and being confronted with a room full of men, for me it was more about I need to learn and soak up as much knowledge as I can about the industry. I think the challenges with men came later on when you're negotiating and you get sort of very paternalistic little comments like, oh, lady, I'll get back to you later, or, it's clear when, as a woman in business, a man is not taking you seriously, or when they decide, well, we're going to only talk business at the bar. because we know that she may not want to hang around at the bar. So some of these challenges I've had, and sometimes I go to the bar and I'll stay at the bar, but it all depends on exactly what is happening at that time, you know. But it can be very, very intimidating, and there's still very much an old boys club. Even in our little shipping community here, there's an old boys club that is very hard to break through. And if I, as a woman, question things that the others will allow to slide, then I will be castigated. And I have been. As a woman in this industry, I don't feel compelled to be a strong man or to behave, let me say, like a strong female among strong men. I prefer to be true to myself and to be true to my personal values and the company's values. So I don't feel I have anything to prove because I am a female in this very male paternalistic industry. Having said that, there have been some men who have mentored me along the way. I remember one of my first recollections, first Caribbean Shipping Association meeting in 1992, having been mentored by someone who would be in my grandfather's age then, and actually took me around and introduced me to all the key players. So there have been those who have been supportive. And I would also like to think that in my role, I will help to mentor other females, be given the opportunity to mentor other females.
It is accepted that creating role models and mentors are key for female entrepreneurship. What about the future of the business?
Hassell & Son Limited must diversify in order to stay relevant. You know, we live in a changing environment, and so we have to continue looking at ways in which we can add value for our customers. In terms of the industry, we are operating in a very, very dynamic industry where ships are becoming larger and larger. And this poses significant challenges for small ports like ours, which do not have the infrastructure in place or the port facilities to handle these large ships. One of the reasons why the ships are becoming larger and larger are due to the erosion of freight rates and the increase in the cost of fuel, as well as the emissions, the CO2 emissions, which are all costs to the shipping lines. Therefore, in order to achieve economies of scale, they're building larger and larger ships. The problem for small ports in our region is that these larger ships cannot call at our ports. So we then have to depend on smaller feeder ships. And those smaller ships are fewer and fewer in supply. This challenge then adds to the final cost for us as an importer or as a consumer. So we have to continue to rely on these feeder services. And the other impact is that, you know, this is purely an issue of supply and demand. It's purely driven by supply and demand. So the more the economy grows, then the more we will need the relevant size ships to serve.
It is an industry on which our economy is based. We could never underscore the importance of these businesses to the development and growth of our economy.
Because many black businesses have come up, they have graced the landscape of Barbados, but after the death of the founder, they have failed.
Annie Wilson, for example, 5 in 10 Rollock. Cammy Tudor's father, he had at one point, he was the biggest provision merchant in town. He had 99 properties with shops attached across the island. But with his passing, the business disappeared. Same thing happened to Annie Wilson and several other black businesses.
The Hassell business did not fail mainly due to succession planning and the fact that the family members were all a part of the enterprise. For example, when Eric Hassell started his business in 1969, it was called Eric Hassell and Son. And that son was Jeffrey Hassell, who worked with him from the 1960s up until about 1994. Then Captain Hassell died. And after Jeffrey demitted office and after Captain Hassell died, another son, Frank, took over the business. So we see, therefore, that transition where the family with the sons or some of the sons take command of the enterprise and carry it through. And of course, in 2007, Erica, his granddaughter, she's now Erica Luke, his granddaughter, took command of the business. So that family solidity is important in explaining why the business has gone from strength to strength, why it has expanded and now a very important player in the shipping business of Barbados.
In every episode to date, there were lessons for all of us. It is certainly not an exhibition of any one particular business, but the enduring stories and fine examples of our very own people. These are examples of which aspiring businessmen and women may gather inspiration as they seek to play their part in the economic activities of a new Barbados. This has been From Sabre to Barbados, the maritime legacy of Captain Eric Hassell. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. Thanks for your time.